All right, so here we go. And today we are going to check in on the second draft of the conceptual plan, which is really exciting. We're going to start things off with a couple of introductions regarding reflow, the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District, the overall schoolyard redevelopment process, and then we're going to check in on the second draft of the plan. We'll go through a couple ways for this group and others to be able to provide feedback as we keep going forward. And we'll have a couple breaks in there for questions as well. So that being said, my name is Justin Haggerty. I'm the executive director of the nonprofit Reflow. Reflow works on community-based water projects in the Milwaukee area. We have 5 different program areas. This one is our Green and Healthy Schools program, where we work with many schools in the area to redevelop their schoolyards. We also support the Green Schools Consortium of Milwaukee, which is a regional network connecting resources to local green and healthy schools as well. This is a slide representing the Community Design Solutions, CDS. We have a couple of architectural students that are joining us here. CDS is a program through UW Milwaukee, and they're helping create the renderings and conceptual plans for the schoolyard redevelopment projects as well. And then Lisa Sasso, would you mind introducing yourself and the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Lisa Sasso. I work for the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District, and we're just very excited working with schools. So MMSD, our main mission is wastewater treatment and flood management. So obviously MMSD is invested in these projects to help reduce the risk of overflows and the environmental impacts, but we also really want to work with schools to get rid of all that hard space and have that green space or to capture that rainwater and clean up the stormwater, but also it's a great educational resource where not only are the students learning about the environment, but it's also the community, the parents, the teachers, and just a great impact. So we're happy to be a part of the conceptual planning process, and then we typically work with the schools through the implementation as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa. And yeah, just want to underscore, Lisa and the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District are sponsoring the conceptual planning process. So in the beginning, we alluded to the grant. The grant in this case is the conceptual planning phase of the redevelopment, and that's sponsored by MMSD. So thank you for that, Lisa. Okay, so kind of big picture here. We're with Kluge, and you guys are a part of cohort 5, and we've been at this for several years. You guys are in an annual cohort with 5 other schools. We've celebrated construction at 2 initial cohorts and 1 pilot group of schools. We're going into construction this upcoming summer at cohort 3 schools. We were able to raise about $3.4 million to support those 5 schools. And we have a cohort ahead of you guys, which are just entering the fundraising phase of development as well. So this is kind of a large pipeline of schoolyard redevelopment projects, and each year they get bigger and better, which is really exciting. And there's lots of lessons learned that are proactively being applied to Kluge and the other schools as well. So that's just want to keep that in reference. And the other schools in your cohort are Genslen, German Immersion, Mitchell, and Riley, just for reference as well. So they're kind of in the same boat as where you guys are at too. And here we just want to take a quick moment to take a look at what a lot of this, the redevelopment looks like, just to provide kind of some strong visuals of that. And so here we have if I go back, we're gonna watch a quick video on this. It's just about 2 minutes long, and it helps to kind of provide some more visuals on the schoolyard redevelopment process.
Many Milwaukee area schoolyards are in poor condition and offer little, if any, green space. Schoolyards were originally paved to reduce lawn maintenance costs, but decades of inertia have left deteriorating infrastructure that is costly to repair and impairs the environmental health of our city and the social emotional health of our children. The redevelopment process begins with schools applying to receive conceptual planning support provided by Reflow and the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District. Each year, 5 schools are awarded the planning grant based on their need and enthusiasm for a greener, healthier schoolyard. The year-long planning process consists of monthly Green Team meetings that culminate in the development of a conceptual plan document that is well supported by the school community, administration, and project partners. Schools spent over a year fundraising with support from the school district, project partners, and community. School districts hire engineering consultants to create the necessary detailed designs before construction can begin in the summer of the third year of the process.
I am not going to litter because water carries trash down hills into the river or lake.
I'm going to remind my family that our choices affect more than just ourselves. Everything is connected.
These projects don't only help our schools receive a new and better playground, they're also helping the environment and making a positive change in our community.
An increasing body of research underscores that students' access to green schoolyards can result in better academic outcomes, increased engagement and enthusiasm, improved social emotional skills, and decreased childhood obesity. Redeveloped schoolyards also offer many other benefits, including improved stormwater management, urban biodiversity, community engagement, and meaningful STEAM curricular connections.
For more information, visit reflowh2o.com.
So just pause it there. So this also provides a good glimpse of all of the partnerships that are behind these schoolyard redevelopment projects. It takes a community to make these projects happen. So there's a number of partners that are very engaged and very active. And Kluge is in a really great position to be able to make the most out of those partnerships as well. Okay, so as we keep moving on through the kind of the introduction here, we just watched that video on the overall process that included conceptual planning, fundraising, detailed design and permitting, construction, and then maintenance and stewardship. And Kluge is at the very beginning of this process. So we're in the conceptual planning. We started things off really last month. We had an opportunity last month to get some ideas on paper, get some response from the Kluge Green Team. And today we're going to review the second draft of that. And we'll be getting together monthly over the course of 2021, with the exception of summer, to iteratively improve upon the conceptual plan. And then we'll spend all of 2022 in the fundraising phase of development. And then MPS, at the district level, will hire a engineering consultant team to be able to put together the detailed designs and permitting information for construction in the summer of 2023. So if we're successful in fundraising, we're looking at construction in about 2 years from now. And I do want to kind of underscore that, conceptual planning is all about what are the major components, where are we thinking they'll go, and making sure that we're setting fundraising targets appropriately based on kind of the high level planning for the site. And then as we get into the detailed phase, then we're talking about, really fine details, like what are the distances, what are the types of equipment that we're talking about, some of the really fine details. So our conversations today will be kind of high level, what are the major things that we'd like to see on the schoolyard. So that being said, Mr. Willingham, if you wouldn't mind, we'd be really interested to just kind of check in with the Kluge team here and just hear from you. Just reiterate, why were you guys interested in the schoolyard redevelopment process? Just kind of real quickly, what are the kind of the high level needs and enthusiasm behind going through this effort?
Okay, thank you, Justin, for that. And real quick, I think that Justin asked for any dignitaries or representatives who may have joined the call a little bit late. Please make sure you put your information in the chat. I know he wants to make sure that he recognizes everyone who's joining us tonight. So if you could do that, Justin, let me just take a point of reference. Let me just thank Mrs. Hood, was one of our staff members who was with us on the call tonight. And you've seen her on every call since we've started these meetings. Mrs. Hood is not actually feeling the best. She hasn't been able to join us back at work yet, and she hasn't been feeling well. So it's just good to know that Ms. Hood is with us on this call right here. So I just want to say thank you and a special recognition to Ms. Hood for being here tonight. Ms. Hood, we definitely appreciate your dedication and your enthusiasm for this particular project. And so speaking about this particular project right here, as you can see, we are in desperate need of some change for the obvious reasons. If you can look at the playground, you can see that it doesn't look like the most inviting space, and it's too bad because we have a really inviting atmosphere amongst our school community. So we were looking for ways that we could make a transformation in our school community in a way that could be most positive for our students throughout the school day, and also most positive for our neighbors and the constituents of this particular area and neighborhood. Stormwater, we do have an opportunity to have several drainage areas for stormwater off of our playground. However, this just doesn't provide the safest environment with the lack of green space, the lack of inviting outdoor classroom space, with the lack of a place where students can engage in physical play and also educational curriculum that will enhance the way that they live their daily life and whatnot. But one of the biggest things that we wanted to make sure is that we have the equity was thought of or thought about when you talk about how do we serve the students of Milwaukee Public Schools. We want to make sure we serve the students of all neighborhoods and all the way through the north side to the south side. So we figured that why not us for this particular cohort. So we appreciate it. We do know that a lot of our staff members are excited about the process. They have been asking questions. Some people have been submitting their individual plans as to how they expect to use this particular grant, or how they want to use this area. And then some people are still coming along, probably just wondering, what is this that we're talking about doing and whatnot. So we're in the beginning stages of what this could possibly look like. And we just want to say thank you to you guys for helping us put this vision together, and hopefully with the help of everyone on the call and the people who want to be with us, who are with us in spirit but couldn't be here physically. With everyone's help, we can make this dream come true, not only for our children, but for our community as well. So we just want to say thank you. The enthusiasm is there. Sometimes when you are building the plane as you fly, you don't know exactly where you're going, but we do know that we want to land. And so we know in 3 years, we want to land someplace nice. So we want to say thank you again. We appreciate you.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's great. I see Representative Drake is on the call. Would you mind unmuting yourself and just introducing yourself, please?
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. I'm glad that I was invited to join the call. I'm the state representative for the 11th Assembly District, which Kluge is in. So I put my information on the chat, and if there's any other questions or concerns that you all may have, please feel free to reach out to my office. Otherwise, I'm excited to be here to learn about the great things that are happening at Kluge School, and how I can be a part of that. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, are there, we'll just take a pause here. Are there any questions about the process, direction that we're going? Our next step of this conversation tonight is going to look at the second draft of the conceptual plan. But just want to pause to see if there's any thoughts or questions out there before we get into that. Okay.
Justin, just to be sure, for people who may not know, just want to reiterate the fact that whatever we talk about and reveal today or whatnot, this is still a work in progress. Nothing is set in stone until we begin to actually break ground and lay cement or whatnot. So in case people look at the sketches or designs and say, that's what it is, I wish we would have did something different, you still can by participating and lending your voice and your ideas. So just wanted to make sure we said that.
Yep, that's a good one. And yeah, and I would also build off that too and say, this isn't the only opportunity to provide that feedback. We're getting together every month throughout 2021 to have these conversations, and we'll talk through a couple different methods that everyone can provide feedback to. So those that aren't in this meeting as well. Okay, so I'm gonna flip over. So one of the ways that we're gonna provide feedback today is through the software Idea Flip. And Lisa's going to drop the link for that in the chat right there. And I'm just going to walk us through how Idea Flip works. I know the first draft with the school green team, we did this very similar, but I'll just kind of walk us through what the board is set up as. Pre-pandemic, we would have done this in in the gym. We would have had like boards set up, and they would have all had great things on it. And this is set up to be kind of a virtual gym or set of boards. And up at the top here, we have what was from the original schoolyard redevelopment surveys. We had asked for the Kluge community to communicate what they would like to see on the new schoolyard. There are some really great thoughts about gardens and loose parts, murals. I won't go through all of these, but there's some really great ideas out there. We also got some solid responses about activities that you'd like to do on the school grounds. And we heard from students and adults. This is really helpful to help build out, what kind of features and what kind of activities can we do to help support what you would like to see on the school grounds. So we did that. We also got some sketches, which were really helpful as well. And then for those that were part of the school green team last month, we had a first draft put together. We had some precedents, like some images that represent similar concepts. We got a lot of good feedback on that. And then today we have the second draft. So we took that feedback and we made some revisions over the course of the past month. And today we want to just take a look at what that plan is saying. And then we're going to go through the same prompts. And I'll come back to these prompts, but I just want to introduce them. One, what are the things that we like about the current plan? What are number two is opportunities for improvement. And then number three are what questions are there that are out there, so that we can work on that and get back if anyone has any thoughts or questions about what's going on. But we'll come back to those three prompts in a moment. And again, Lisa did drop that link in the chat. So if anyone wants to follow along in this platform, you can do that. But I'm going to ask Elise from Community Design Solutions to kind of walk us through some of the updates to the conceptual plan. And again, underscore draft, second draft, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, hi everybody. So yeah, lots of updates have been made. Some things have been moved around, but some things have stayed the same, like that kind of center track circle classroom area. But now it's been a little bit more detailed and designed as well. So we've got lots of space for an outdoor classroom with shading, trees all around it, kind of an additional like art posts and decorative benches into that grass area to the north, so you can spill out seating as well and just kind of have other little areas for interaction and hanging out within this kind of center space. Like I said, trees are all around it. We've got a track with meters going around it as well. And then to the left and right, we've kind of extended out some agility markers, some of those ones that we saw from last time we met, kind of copying that same style and creating more ways to wind through the space as well. Gaga ball pits to the right. And then another major move was kind of switching the kickball soccer field area. I know the soccer field used to be more to the north, but we've positioned it more south. Again, lots of trees surrounding it, bioswales to the right. Trees lining the kickball as well for some protective area. And then also adding some of those little tree benches just underneath where the garden boxes are. So that can kind of create a secondary like outdoor classroom. So there would be benches that we would add underneath those existing trees that kind of border your school. But then, like I said, getting some planter boxes under there and some trees and seating around it as well to emphasize that area.
So Will, can you now kind of show, so Elise has been working, so as we get through this, as the plan matures, we're going to be producing three kind of renderings that show visualizations into this plan drawing. And so Elise has a first draft, if you wouldn't mind walking us through what this is.
So this is a first perspective drawing of that center outdoor classroom space. You're kind of positioned on some of these agility paths looking directly into the space. The path that you would take, or one of the many paths that you could take into the center space. And you can see some of those art posts and benches around as well. Log seating for the theater space with lots of shading, and as you can see, lots of trees. And yeah, like there's some children playing to the right. You can kind of see the soccer fields and Gaga balls pits way in the distance for you there. So, and like I said, as Justin said, there'll be multiple renderings so we can highlight different spaces throughout. So I think that would be another good conversation point is what other spaces do you want to see rendered out and have more detail? So yeah.
And then I'm just going to show a couple precedent images. So precedent images, that kind of lingo means different pictures from other sites that have similar components. And I know we ran through a couple of these last time, but Lisa Neve on the call has kind of fine-tuned some of these images to help kind of communicate some of the features that Elise just walked us through. So native landscaping, this is at Fondy Park, but you can kind of expect, 3-foot high native plants that are native to Wisconsin. Sometimes there's, black-eyed Susans and other types of plantings that help attract pollinators like butterflies and other species. Here we have a bioswale, so that's intended to go right in the middle of the school site. That green space that is on that rendering will look kind of like this, where it has kind of a ditch, some people might call that, but it's really a bioswale, and that's really helps to manage stormwater. In the case of Kluge's conceptual plan here, we're going to manage a lot of stormwater. We're hoping to grab 95% of the stormwater that falls off the school grounds and manage it appropriately, so it helps to reduce flooding in the neighborhood as well. And then some of those pathways, you can see that this is a kind of a cool pathway through a bioswale. Going through these projects with bioswales on school grounds, balls will get in there, kids will run through there. And so what we've learned in time is to be able to just support that and maybe direct that student activity to certain pathways so that it doesn't necessarily damage potentially sensitive plantings, especially in the first couple of years as they get established. Trees, especially on school grounds, we want to make sure that we protect them until they get established. And so putting this kind of more protective fencing around it will help last for a couple of years while the trees establish. An underground cistern, this is a project that was done at Alice's Garden. This would be appropriate for the underneath the bioswales to be able to manage and store as much stormwater on the school grounds as possible. And then shade sails. This is a good example of providing some color and some like placemaking space around that outdoor classroom in the middle. Elise mentioned art posts. This is an example from the Academy of Accelerated Learning that serves as an opportunity to have decorative posts. It could be different features if we want to explore different sculptural elements or different types of arts programming. We can certainly talk about that and include that in the plans as well. We want to make sure we're representing Kluge appropriately as a school for the arts. So we felt like this could be kind of a cool visual opportunity to accent the outdoor classroom area. And then we have these circular features that we're calling out as the concrete planter benches. These are opportunities to have benches on the school grounds that are really resilient, that also act as kind of a planter. What we're talking about with schools is also using this as an exhibit space. So maybe art activities can be planted, so to speak, inside of there. Different types of grasses could be planted underneath that canopy as well. But that's a strong visual. Benches, and then I do want to zoom into the agility pathways as well. So when we do this, this is an example from MKE Rec. There's opportunity painted play that says hop, skip, and jump through different spaces. It's kind of a really intuitive activity for students to be able to play on the school grounds on this painted play. The sensory gardens, I see that in the chat. We'll come back up to that one too. Gaga Ball, for those that aren't familiar, this is kind of a smaller scale kickball facility that helps support some gross motor activity that's a little less intensive than kickball, a little bit more inclusive. It's really popular amongst many students. Okay, so those are the precedents. Those are some of the ideas. And that link is in the, Lisa, if you wouldn't mind just dropping that one more time in the chat window. So if anyone wants to respond to these prompts, again, we're looking for, what you like about the current plan, what are opportunities for improvement, and what are some questions about that. And I'll show you real quick how to respond to these prompts. So once you get into it, on the right-hand side, there's stationery. And if I just left click and drag these sticky notes, I can drag them into one of those 3 prompts, and I can go ahead and double click it and then just type in there and say, what do I like? I like the bioswales. Bioswales and walking paths. So one thing I'll say is in the details, we can see who made those comments. So if there are any questions, we can follow up appropriately with those individuals as well. But there it goes. And that's one of the ways to be able to respond to this. The colors aren't going to matter for our purposes today, so you can get as creative as you'd like with whatever color post-it note. And so Elise, would you want to respond to some of the sensory activities and some of like the sensory play areas? I know we had talked about in this corner in particular.
Yeah, so that back corner, I think, is another opportunity of where we talked about, because it is kind of a little bit more tucked away. It can create that meditation prompts, kind of that sensory activities. I think that, and all along where the garden boxes are in that whole space, I think could be easily turned into a really nice sensory garden, and places where you can walk and kind of have that more mindful space. And then I also know we talked about if there were any more sensory activities that could happen back there. I know other schools have talked about options as well, Justin, like lavender gardens, I think was one, if that's kind of what we're thinking about.
Yep, lavender. Some have done like painted on the asphalt labyrinths. And labyrinths are not mazes, but they're it's like one way in and one way out, and so you kind of follow that pathway. That can be painted on the asphalt, or that could be built above it through different means as well. So if a labyrinth is of interest. I also want to say that what's shown here in crushed red granite, that is all wheelchair accessible pathways. Also that kind of stage area for the outdoor classroom, that we want to make sure that shows as having a ramp, so that would all be wheelchair accessible as well.
Yeah, in the rendering, I think you can kind of see a little bit of that, but yeah, a little ramp on there in the back, but yeah, it's a pretty flat, durable surface too with the crushed red granite.
Let's see some comments in the chat. And then we see some people populating the prompts here too. Any big thoughts that we want to chime in and just kind of hear those out with the big group? That anyone want to unmute and just kind of make some comments while others are responding via the board?
Hello, my name is Laura. Could I make a comment?
Yeah, for sure.
Beautiful plan. Super excited to see it. Question, I know that we discussed many things last meeting, one of them being adding some bee and pollinator attracting flowers. I do know that those require a lot of water and maintenance and aren't necessarily always native or super hardy without regular support. So I was wondering if maybe some of the trees that we added could be native trees that flower that might naturally attract bees and pollinators, like a serviceberry tree. Although I know that maybe considering certain types might then limit our size and you want that shade. I was just wondering if any trees are going to be added along the edging, maybe that could be native pollinating trees that would maybe bring some shade, but also, by production have blooms and flowers, which would be another way to bring in some butterflies and bees and natural pollinators.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Angeline Koch, who is the MPS sustainability specialist, she's the project manager within MPS facilities that manages this project and the school projects. She's also a master gardener, and I think she would have similar comments and similar ideas. And you guys were talking about planting a lot of different trees. So there's a lot of opportunity here to explore different types of flowering trees. Some of the fruit bearing trees, I know on schools, we've been a little bit more sensitive about making sure that those are maybe in corners or different areas that, if there are any allergies, that that area can be kind of separated from the rest of the space, like service berries in some cases. But if there is interest in exploring some of the diversity in trees, I think that would be really great to make a comment on, so that we can provide a little bit more explanation of some of the opportunities on that front.
Sorry, I was having a little hard time with my sticky note. Do you want me to add it on there for you?
That'd be great. If you wouldn't mind, that'd be awesome. Anyone else want to kind of chime in and provide some feedback on what we're looking at?
In the chat, we're talking about different kinds of like activity and sensory focused panels, like the touch mazes and different tactile things. So there's more than just smells from the plants and the flowers, but just different kinds of sensory connections that we can help bring to the students as well.
Yeah, so for those that aren't, just to kind of provide some more description of that, those are kind of like boards that you move things around, right? And it's very tactile. I'm curious, from the Kluge team, would you prefer to have those by kind of the younger ones up on the north side of the building, or where would those panels be most appropriate?
I'm going to allow other people to talk.
Could that be something that maybe gets integrated into that grassy area that's just to the south of the tot lot there?
Over here?
Yeah.
That grass could probably be expanded a little too. I mean, I know we've got a little wiggle room with the kickball underneath. So that could become more of an actual usable space too, I think.
And as far as the sensory gardens, or whatever you want to call them, they should be accessible to all grade levels, not necessarily by the tot lot though, because all grade levels won't be over there.
Got it. How do we feel about the meditation planter space in the corner? What do we call that? The wind tunnel?
Well, that would be great, but it's hotter than heck in there in the summer.
Yeah.
Or in the, the late.
What if they were kind of like right in this area? Sorry, I just drew a really weird little mark on Zoom.
So I didn't know, just I'm really liking this sketch. It looks like, if I'm looking at it correctly, it looks like even the north side of the building was addressed, like on the side over there closer to, it looks like there were some trees or some space that was planted or added on the north side of the building along Carmen Avenue right there. That path that I'm looking at, those aren't there now. And it looks like there's even outside of the eastern door, right above where it says existing tot lot, maybe some trees over there in that area as well, which I really like the idea of as much green space and shrubbery as possible, which will eventually grow large enough to have some more shaded area and whatnot. And we know that during the summertime for our community members, and then even during the school year, the kids are constantly trying to escape sometimes beating sun or whatnot. Yeah. And I'm sure the community members who will just walk in the neighborhood would enjoy that. That's why those planter spaces with the seating is very important as well. So like those ideas a lot.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned this one. So this pathway, if there's interest in gardening and in orchards, in this case, how I mentioned like fruit bearing trees, we've tried to kind of put in certain areas of the schoolyard or certain areas of different schools. If that's appropriate, like we could call out these trees as being, fruit bearing trees, and this could become more of like an orchard as you walk through there. It's not appropriate for every school, but some schools, really, like that idea. We just planted a 30 tree orchard at Vincent this last fall. Different program, but if there is interest, that could serve as a nice opportunity. Alternatively, it could be really great kind of seeing those different types of flowering trees that come through here as well. It would be helpful to get some feedback on, what would you like to see if we were to plant trees? There's different options for especially
Okay.
this area here.
Okay. Mhm. What
Also,
in the,
yeah.
I was going to say, what do you guys run up against with other schools in regards to this green space? And then I think someone made a really good point about, I think Ms. C made a point about many things needing the attention of constant attention throughout the seasons or whatever. I'm pretty sure a lot of this stuff would be, what do they call those, perennials or whatever, that will grow on their own. But some things require maybe, I think about the garden, consistent watering and things of that nature. What have other schools, maybe cohort 1, cohort 2, what have they run up against in the areas of that, being able to maintain those types of spaces, dealing with the confines that we're dealing with? It's not like we have a lot of readily available water hoses and things of that nature. Maybe we can petition our district to give us those things because of this.
Yeah. So, so a couple things on that one. So the nice thing about native plantings is that they're native to Wisconsin and they're used to our climate. And so that also they're used to, periods of drought, so that they're, when they get established, they can last longer, and theoretically, we don't necessarily have to water them for the native plantings. So I do want to underscore that they need to become established first. And so this is a good example, that bioswale picture. These are all plugs. So this was more or less shortly after they were put into the ground. And so for the first 2-3 years, they're going to need a little bit more watering, a little bit more care. But after those 3 years, they're native and they take care of themselves. And so for cohort 1 and cohort 2, because of the pandemic, Reflow has stepped in to be able to help schools to help weed the spaces. That's really the big one. As you can see in between these plugs that there's a lot of ground here, and taking care of those weeds for those first couple of years is really important so that the weeds don't necessarily take over the whole space. And what's happening with our native species, many of our native species, is for the first 2-3 years, they're growing down into the soil so that they have access to sources of water in the long run. So we don't have to continue to add more water to the top because they have deeper root systems. With weeds, it's kind of the opposite. They're more or less shallower root systems, but they grow up and then they kind of consume the space. And so Reflow's kind of stepped in during the pandemic here to help weed a lot of the green spaces for schools, because school green teams haven't been able to take that on. And then,
Can I
yeah.
Can I ask another question? What have the other partnerships done regarding maintenance of mulch? Has any of them ever done mulch? That is something, that's a maintenance thing. It's a good thing, but it's a maintenance thing. Have any of the other organizations done wood mulch, or do they prefer to do more of the natural grasses and things that fill in and therefore minimize the weeds and maybe don't need mulch?
Yeah, so mulch is appropriate. Here, let's see.
I just know it's maintenance, so
Yeah, yep. So definitely put mulch around the base of these newly planted trees. And the benefits of mulch is that it helps to retain that moisture at the surface as well, and it helps to kind of reduce the watering need because it's retaining more moisture. With that being said, it deteriorates over the course of time, and they need to be replenished maybe every year, maybe every other year. So we don't end up putting a lot of mulch, throughout the school grounds. The other type of wood-like ground cover is engineered wood fiber. EWF is the short term for that. And that ends up, you see that like underneath tot lots, and you see that under different spaces. And that's like a higher grade of wood chip that doesn't necessarily splinter when kids fall on it and things like that. And so both of those surfaces, engineered wood fiber and mulch, would have to be replenished in time as well. No, as these trees mature, that grass can, you know, get closer and closer to the base of that tree. But that's, you know, in this case, we're not calling for a lot of mulch throughout the school grounds. Some spaces we have, you know, mulch areas or engineered wood fiber areas, but in this case, we're not showing a lot of that on the school grounds.
So I'm guessing then that will limit in some capacity our ability to diversify those native plants because we want the super heat hardy ones then.
Yeah, well, if there is interest in having a nice, so the trade-off with having a really wide diversity of different plantings is you have to have a better understanding of what is a weed and what isn't a weed. And so I think of it in terms of like a spectrum. Some schools are on one side of the spectrum where they kind of want a low maintenance scheme where it's really easy. Maybe they have 10 different types of, or 10 to 15 different types of native plantings. And it's pretty easy to maintain it because you can just see those 15. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we have had schools that, you know, have far more than 30 different types of plantings, and you kind of walk through the space, and it's you have a great deal of diversity. The caveat with that is sometimes when maintaining it, it can become difficult to understand what is a weed and what isn't a weed because of how complex it may get. It totally depends on the school's green team and willingness to support the new green space. And I can, if that isn't entirely clear, I can provide some more feedback on that. What we're doing with schools that have gone through the construction and are in the maintenance and stewardship phase, we're putting together these maintenance and stewardship guidebooks that help to communicate what is a weed, what isn't a weed. And there's a lot of guidance from UW Extension, the Master Gardener program, and other programs to help identify as well.
Thank
Does that
you.
help? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, where do you see Kluge? Like what in the middle, on one side? Where do we see? Do we want to see a lot of diversity in the different types of plantings? You know, given the trade-off we just talked through. But I think, yeah, it's up to the school green team to figure out what's the right balance, especially for maintenance.
I think you had a really good point. I'm a kind of master gardener wannabe, and that is an excellent point you brought up. It's exactly that. It's whatever you're going to put down, you got to be able to maintain. So I think some diversity is nice, but we don't necessarily have a lot of extra hands. So having some diversity is great, but does it have to be 50 different varieties? Not necessarily. I mean, maybe the money needs to be best spent on things that are going to give us that best bang for our buck between low maintenance yet high output of attracting those pollinators and or needing minimal deadheading and or low maintenance regarding the weeding, like native black-eyed Susans.
While we're talking about trees and vegetation, I kind of want to call out, we were intentional with where we put the trees here through the outdoor classroom space. So south is on the bottom of the page here. So these trees here would help to shade the asphalt, depending on what kind of trees we get. And we're talking many years down the line but Kluge's been around for a long time, and this redevelopment will be around for a long time. So in time, this would help to shade the asphalt to the north of it. These trees here to the south of the outdoor classroom would help to shade the outdoor classroom itself, while providing a lot of exposure to the bioswale, which would help to soak up stormwater as well. So we're trying to be mindful about where we're putting these trees to help shade in particular. the asphalt that would be immediately to the north of it.
May I ask if the circle in the middle has enough seats to seat a possibly 30-student classroom? Because we do have classrooms that could be that big.
Yeah, thanks I saw that in the chat. That's great. So yes, we want to make sure the number that we try to shoot for the outdoor classrooms is more like 35, just to make sure that it's large enough to accommodate a full-grown classroom plus any adults that would be helping. And then also I know we talked about this in the previous discussions too, is making sure that these spaces are usable for the surrounding community after school hours as well. And so in that regards, making sure that 35 is the reasonable number. We don't want to make it too large so that it attracts too much attention. But 35, I think if that sounds appropriate to you guys, would make the most amount of sense. 35 students, I think is great. So yeah, the scale of this is pretty large. It's a pretty big space. Okay. Other things I kind of thought, the basketball, we're showing 2 full court basketball. Does that still sound appropriate? 2 full courts. Other alternatives could be, 1 full court and 1 half court, if it makes sense to reduce. Some schools talk about having, one of the half courts be a shorter hoop for the younger kids. The trade-off with that is, we've heard from schools that have that and it becomes kind of like a dunking contest after school hours. So talking about how those hoops could be removed as appropriate, but I just kind of wanted to kind of push on the basketball. What are we thinking about what we're showing here?
Yeah, I like the idea of a shorter one, and basketball courts as it stands now are able to be removed, I think, by the engineers of school buildings. So the dunking one, the one that I would be able to dunk on, would definitely need to come up. But I do like the idea. I didn't even think about that possibility of having a smaller court so the younger kids can enjoy that. I know that normally the kids 3rd grade and under in leagues play on 8-foot rims and lower, so that makes a lot of sense. And obviously it reaches more students in our school building.
So we thinking, 1 full court with regular hoops and then 1 full court with shorter hoops, or a half court with shorter hoops?
I think that last time we talked, I think we only talked about having a 1 full court and a half court. So there was no need for 2 full courts, but if we're not going to put anything else in that space, then I would say we only need a half court. I was actually just recommended on the thing that we move that Gaga ball. That is the all right, so my dog just got the zoomies. It's crazy. That we move the Gaga ball that's furthest south, which is to the bottom of the screen, closer west, which would be to the left. We going up toward the basketball court area, maybe on the opposite side over there. Because as it stands right there, further south right there, that's a good distance, quite a distance away from building and whatnot. We kind of want to focus those school activities a little bit closer. So if we don't use 2 full courts, that would be the ideal place to put the second Gaga ball court.
Okay, so it would actually go
in that area.
Yeah, I like that, because what that blue dot represents is a stormwater inlet. So that's kind of a rough hoop location too. So we put Gaga ball on half that court, and the other half, I saw in the comments too, maybe it's an adjustable hoop, so it can go either way, short and tall ones. Okay, so I like that. We'll kind of modify that. If there's any more comments on that, please make sure to put those either in the chat or in the opportunities for improvement. So we have just a handful of moments left. Is there anything else? I do want to, in the last 5 minutes, I do want to just kind of walk through next steps and other ways to provide feedback on this. Is there anything else that we want to make sure is heard during this meeting for the updates for the plan?
I just want to be sure that it was said, because I read it some places, someone made a suggestion about, two suggestions that were made. So I just want to talk this out with people, see their thoughts. Somebody made a suggestion about picnic tables outside or whatnot. And if there was some space, I'm assuming that maybe the outdoor classroom area or maybe the bench space can serve as like a place where people will sit down, rest, and be able to eat. So I don't know if it's really necessary to have a picnic table, but as long as we have some space to sit and be able to eat or enjoy a meal or a snack at the same time, that might be good. But also, we want to make sure we got areas for garbage cans out there as well. Then the second thing someone said was in regards to swing, when we do tot lots or whatever. Last time we talked about a tot lot, possibly even two, maybe a tot lot, because older kids like to older kids like to tot. Older kids like to play on the tot lots as well. And when I say older kids, I'm talking about kids above the age of kindergarten. And primarily where it is right now, if we have it near our kindergarten area, obviously, but we want to make sure we have either equipment on there that can be used by a little bit older kids, or it may become more expensive to be able to put an additional space on the other side of the playground or whatnot. But someone did mention swings, and good old fashioned swings. Something to be said about kicking your legs out and going high into the air. So
so swings currently, our MPS policy on school grounds does not allow for swings, just because of the potential liability of kids being hit by the swings. Now, I hear you saying like gross motor activities for older kids is appropriate. We can certainly follow up with the swings to see if there's opportunity to kind of push back on that. I just wanted to say that we have asked that in the past, and that's the current policy. With that being said, policies can change, and so we can look into that for sure. But I also hear like gross motor for like climbing activities. I see that in the chat, rock walls, that kind of stuff for older kids, right? Yeah.
Definitely so.
And then where would some of that go? So if we, I know we're talking younger kids are up on the north side, where would some of the gross motor for the older kids go? By soccer down here?
Could we eliminate the kickball field? Or, I mean, obviously teachers chime in here. You guys are out there a lot more than I am at recess, but I know I don't generally see it being used for actual kickball. If we had the opportunity to like extend the tot lot, would that be an option?
I think we might want the field, at least whether it's for kickball or for soccer or for whatever they want to use it for. I think that just having that field area, I think is going to be necessary.
No, Morris, I think she's talking about the area on the sketch where it says kickball, where it's not an actual field, it's still cement.
Oh, okay. I got to look carefully because I thought that was the area that was the field.
Yeah. So where's a good? Oops, sorry.
So that's the place where the artificial turf was going to be, though, right?
So you guys, right now, you guys have one kickball field here to the far southeast, and then this kickball field, which is already existing. Not, I'm saying field. I should say maybe asphalt. And so what we're showing in the conceptual plan is that would largely stay the same as, kickball on asphalt. Let me zoom out here. Sorry. So right here, we're showing kickball on asphalt.
Right. I would think if we were to add an additional area that we're just talking about, it might be just a little bit to the west of the soccer field, like maybe where that grassy area is, in between the soccer field and the where the Gaga ball proposition may be. So a little bit right there in that green space right there, yeah.
So if this was older kids, gross motor activities, climbing and the like. And we're saying we do want to keep like the kickball, how we're showing it up here.
Yeah, we can't have everything, I guess. Or maybe we can.
And then we do want to talk about expanding, or at least providing, we want to provide more space for the tot lot. If that expands out this way somewhat, maybe it bumps out further as well. Okay, so that's good. In our last couple of minutes here, thank you everyone for providing those comments. We'll make sure to review those. Lisa, Neeb, can you remind me when the comments close for this, please?
So following this meeting, I'm going to send an email with the links to everything you can, all the places you can provide your feedback. So this idea flip, as well as a Google form survey that we put together. And we're asking that all of that feedback comes in by next week, Friday, which is April 30th.
And Lisa just mentioned, so some people respond better with the Google Forms. So that's available. Lisa put together the image that we just ran through, so you can look at that a little bit more closely if you'd like to. And then you can respond how interested you think each one of these components are. So that's really great. And then we did record this virtual open house as well. So tomorrow-ish, we'll send the link for that. So if there's anyone that wasn't able to attend today, they can view this whole video again. And then if anything else comes up, you can email Lisa Neeb, and she can make sure that your comments get added as well. Cool. Okay, any last thoughts, comments before we break for tonight?
I'm going to drop the Google form link right in the chat now in case anybody wants to fill that out following the meeting.
I have one more quick question. I'm wondering if you'd be able to do a rendering from kind of all the different directions, if you will, of the map that you've shown us, because the rendering was just from one angle, which is really awesome. You know, that when I say rendering, I mean that kind of ground level picture.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be nice to have maybe some from different angles. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And this is on point because I know Elise mentioned that and we didn't get that far in the meeting. So I just drew that orange arrow, which is the current perspective. I know we were talking about doing one from that drone photo, which is, you know, kind of down here. Given our conversation on what we're talking about with, you know, kind of modifying this down here, I think it would be great if we got a perspective that looked this way so we can emphasize the wheelchair accessible basketball, some of the climbing features or some of the gross motor activities for the older kids and soccer field. How do we, Laura, what do you think about that?
Sure, that looks like a much, yeah. Looks like a good start to just kind of get a better picture view, yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything else before Mr. Willingham? Is there anything else we need to touch base on before we break? We're all good?
No, I just think that comments in the chat just we're thanking you guys and your team for all the work that you've been doing thus far to get us this far. So I think our staff are appreciative of the efforts of you guys. So I just want to say thank you.
Thanks, everyone. We'll talk next month, our next meeting. Lisa, would you remind us when our next meeting is too? Sorry, last second there.
I think it's May, let me get there. May 20th at 2:45.
All right, May 20th, 2:45. It's the date.
All right.
And Mr. Willingham, if that time does need to change, just with everything being back in person, just email and we can figure it out.
All right, we'll do. We'll do.
Have a good night. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.